Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are St. Louis.
This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball. And this afternoon from Busch Stadium in St. Louis, it's game number 2 between the Cincinnati Reds and the St. Louis Cardinals. Home runs aplenty in game 1 last night. The Cardinals with 6 home runs, 3 three-run homers, and now have hit 6 pinch hit home runs with 2 more added on last night. They nearly set a record which was set back in 1940, then matched again by the 96 club. The Cardinals 7 home runs in 1 game. We show you Matt Carpenter because Carpenter looked to hit a home run until Billy Hamilton took it away. That would have given the Cardinals 7 last night. Remarkable play from Hamilton in center. One of the best plays we've seen here at Busch Stadium. And with Jim Hayes, Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Welcome to Cardinals baseball. This Cardinals offense is on a roll.
It's been fun to watch. I didn't see it coming. The Cardinals did not hit well in Pittsburgh, but since then, it's been all about power, doubles, home runs. In fact, only the Colorado Rockies have a higher slugging percentage in the National League than the Cardinals, and you would expect that in Colorado.
This afternoon, it is Adam Wainwright who gets the call for St. Louis, trying to get on track here in 2016. Wainwright and the Cardinals against Brandon Finnegan and the Cincinnati Reds. Day baseball comes your way next. Here at the ballpark, Busch Stadium in St. Louis, and the Adam Wainwright bobblehead giveaway. Adam Wainwright, defined by a great curveball in his career.
We look at his grip first. He has the spike grip, creates tremendous downward movement. Now let's look at the results. He attacks the strike zone. It's not the only arrow in his quiver, but it's his best pitch. We've seen it throughout his career.
Adam Wainwright gets the call today. Brandon Finnegan, the lefty for the Reds. Baseball comes your way next. Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Bud Light. Raise one to right now. By Chevrolet. Visit your local Mid-America Chevy dealer for great prices on the all-new 2016 Malibu. And by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. The final touches, Bill Finley and his crew here in St. Louis as the field is ready, and it's a beautiful day. 74 degrees here in St. Louis, along with Jim Hayes. Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Busch Stadium in St. Louis. And a look at the Cincinnati Reds lineup. Shortstop Zach Cozart leads it off, followed by Eugenio Suarez, who has 4 home runs to lead their club. Then Joey Votto, Brandon Phillips, Jay Bruce, Devin Mesoraco, Adam Duvall. Scott Schebler's in center today, and Brandon Finnegan, the pitcher, is batting ninth. And on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals, his record stands at 0-1, trying to get on track here in 2016. The ace of the staff, if you will, and that's Adam Wainwright.
Yeah, not the typical start of Adam Wainwright. Nice to have him at home, though, and maybe this could be exactly what he needs to get his mechanics back, to get that bulldog mentality back. I think that's the thing that I'll be looking for with Adam here this afternoon, him attacking this Reds lineup.
The first pitch is taken a bit high, and we're underway. Zach Cozart hitting .429, off to a great start. Has hit safely in each game this year. Little broken bat hit up the middle, backhanded by Jerko. Tough play. Oh, they got him. Jerko to Moss for the first out. That's a speedy runner in Zach Cozart. He gets down the line very well.
Good test defensively for Jerko up the middle. Off balance throw, really going in the opposite direction of the way he needed to throw that ball. And Cozart, who had knee injuries a year ago, maybe lost a step, and Cozart is out number 1.
There's a look at Colton Wong, and Mike Matheny was asked about Colton not playing today, and he said, we're trying to keep everybody fresh. Tough lefty on the mound, so Wong sits And Jerko gets the start. Suarez looks at a strike. He committed 2 costly errors in the first inning of the ball game last night. Led to a couple of runs. He's popped 4 home runs. He's driven in 9. There's that curveball. Vintage Wainwright. Gloved by Diaz. 2 down. Cardinals defense, a presentation of Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. We go around the horn. Holiday, Grichuk, Piscotty in the outfield. Carpenter, Diaz, Jerko, Moss on the infield. Molina is behind the plate. Adam Wainwright is on the mound, again presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Could be a tough year for Brian Price, Rick Horton.
Well, it's been a tough last couple of days for him. They got off to a good start. I think they were surprising people, winning the first few games, but right now his pitching not very deep.
On the first pitch, high fly ball out to center field. There's Randal Grichuk with the shades on and a bright sunshiny day here in St. Louis. A 6-pitch first inning for Adam Wainwright. Last night he played in career game number 600 here in the big leagues, followed by Stephen Piscotty. Then Matt Holliday, 2 home runs last night. Randal Grichuk also homered. Molina, Moss, Jerko, Diaz, and Wainwright. The Cardinals lineup. They will face lefty Brandon Finnegan.
Finnegan still very young, just 23 years of age. Came over from the Royals. In fact, the Reds got 3 very good left-handed pitchers in that trade. Finnegan, not a big guy, very different than Adam Wainwright in terms of his stature, but he's got big-time stuff. Pitched well against the Cubs in his first outing. He used about 30 different times he used his changeup, which is a pitch that's developing for him.
A couple of guys that hail from TCU facing each other here. Finnegan and also Matt Carpenter. Carpenter, by the way, the all-time leader in games played at TCU and at bats. He was 3-time Mountain West Conference selection. And he takes a ball.
Has 2 home runs against Finnegan, too. With just 5 plate appearances.
Really has picked it up after a slow start. You can say that about the entire lineup. But 5 extra base hits, 8 RBIs in the last 6 games. On a hop, and nice play there by Brandon Phillips. The 4-time Gold Glover puts it away. Reds defensively with Duvall, Schebler, and Bruce in the outfield. Suarez, Cozart, Phillips, Votto on the infield. Devin Mesoraco is behind the plate. And that's brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Here's Stephen Piscotty, who is hitless in his last 9 at-bats.
Dan, as you were going through the Cardinals lineup, it's just amazing what a difference a week makes. 7 days ago, you'd say, well, there's a lineup has some holes in it. Now you look at the Cardinals lineup today and you think, wow, there's power there, power here, power in the 8 spot in Diaz.
And power off your bench.
and that may be a factor in this game today. The Reds with just one left-handed reliever, the Cardinals with 4 good pinch hitters off their bench from the left side.
We'll visit with John Mozeliak, the Cardinals GM, coming up in inning number 2. Get an injury update with Jim Hayes. Key pitch to watch out for here with Finnegan, the changeup. When he was working out of the bullpen, didn't throw it all that much. As a starter, he's trying to incorporate that. Yeah, it makes sense when you're in the bullpen. You know, you're talking about guys sometimes are only one pitch guy, like a Jason Mott.
And in the bullpen, he was in a place he didn't want to be.
There's a 1-out walk. Infield defense, a story early on in this contest.
Good play up the middle. This time it's Jed Jerko. That's how it starts defensively for the Cardinals. And Brandon Phillips, a Gold Glover, takes that hot shot off the bat of Matt Carpenter. 2 different plays, but defense, as we always say, matters. Just think about the complexion of an inning. If the first guy gets on, very, very different. Nice to have guys that can pick it behind you.
1 out, runner at first. Here's Holiday, fresh off his 2 home run night. It was his 20th career multi-home run game. And it's a bit surprising, but it was his first home run here at Busch Stadium since 2014. He had 4 home runs last year. All of those were on the road in an injury-plagued season. A lot of room to the right side. And a fly ball hit down the right field line. Bruce giving chase in foul territory and can't come up with it. Well, with Holiday, they're playing so deep and also shifting a little bit towards left center, so a long way to go for the Reds right fielder.
He hasn't won a Gold Glove, but he's been a finalist 3 times. Really has a strong arm in right. Very, very good outfielder.
I'd say one of the better arms in all of baseball. Finnegan was part of the Johnny Cueto deal. Began his career with the Kansas City Royals. And a high strike and a called 3rd strike on Holiday. Let's see if it indeed was a strike. Missouri Lottery Fox Tracks.
Looks like a very good location, inner half. It comes back over the inside corner. High strike, but it's a strike. Tough. That's a tough pitch to hit.
Well, Rick, you talked about it, the fact that you know, Finnegan wasn't real happy working out of the bullpen. He said, quote, about the Royals, they just didn't have a clue what to do with me, end quote. Not happy one bit. Wants to pitch out of a rotation. He'll get his shot here with the Cincinnati Reds.
I understand he's a great kid and a good teammate and all that, but you just wonder about the comment being so directly negative towards an organization. You never know. They may be one of the teams that can sign you somewhere down the road. You don't want to burn your bridges. Maybe that's just being 22, which he was at the time when he said that. He definitely has a great future ahead of him.
Unique story. In 2014, first pitcher to play in both the College World Series and then the professional version in the same year. Did that with TCU and the Kansas City Royals.
So he's mad at the Royals for not starting him, but as a Royal minor league pitcher, he was 0-10 with an ERA over 4.
0-10.
0-10. At least makes you ask some questions about whether or not he might be better out of the pen. Walks have been an issue with him. Really, they've been an issue with the Reds overall this season.
3-1 on Randal Grichuk, who owns 6 home runs in his career against the Reds. Picked up number 6 last night. And the 3-1 pitch. Grichuk leads the club in runs scored. I think a positive for him, the 6 walks, something that has been an issue in previous years. Doesn't draw many walks. And the 3-2 in the dirt. So his second walk here in the first inning. Well, you talked about it, Rick, and we mentioned it, the Hyundai pitch arsenal and that changeup and how much it may be used here today.
Yeah, 25% of the time, again, in that last outing against the Chicago Cubs, where he hadn't given up a hit till the 7th inning. So he was good. Didn't get the win in the game, but he's gotten more and more confidence. Talked about him with Mark Riggins, former Cardinal pitching coach, who's working with him now. He thinks his changeup has gotten to the point where he's confident throwing it any count, any time, and that's really the big hump for him.
Here's Molina. Yachty pulls it foul. Molina is hitting .476 with runners in scoring position to start this year, and I had a nice conversation with him in the clubhouse today, and I said, how is the hand? How would you classify it? And he said, I feel great. It feels as good as it's felt in a long time.
He looks great to me, defensively and offensively.
You always talk about camaraderie, Rick, and teammates. And Molina, the first thing he was asked about was his offense with the one-hitter by Jaime Garcia. And he deflected all those questions and said, my offense, I don't worry about it. I'm worried about the guy on the mound. That's his mindset.
Good for him.
The 0-2. In the air, left field, long way to go for Duvall near the line, and makes the catch. The Cardinals strand 2. We played 1 here at Busch Stadium on a beautiful afternoon, and there's no score.
We look at his Hyundai pitch arsenal. Fastball 42% of the time, 32% with the curve, a sinker at 21. And we talk about that sinker. Here is the grip, the two-seamer, just what it sounds like. 2 fingers on the seams. You can apply pressure left and right to make it move down. That's the two-seamer, and that's the actual grip of Adam Wainwright.
Good stuff. Here's Brandon Phillips. And the first pitch is taken high. Phillips hitting .276 with a home run. He's driven in 4. How concerned, Rick, do you get with the 8 walks issued in 2 games by Adam Wainwright?
Well, you're always concerned about walks no matter who it is. Wainwright is the kind of guy that can make adjustments and get things right. And in some ways, being around Adam, I feel like he's maybe been trying to adjust too much and thinking too much. He is a thinking pitcher, but he's also a bulldog on the mound, as I mentioned earlier. And I think he's better off when he's not thinking about his elbow and his tempo and his finish, but he's just competing. And I'd like to see a little more of that, and I think he would too.
2-2, good cutter.
And I think when that happens, the command will come back, and he'll be focused on the glove and not on his mechanics.
Arm slot, those
kind of slot,
things.
Tipping pitches, all those things that you work on when you throw on the side.
2 balls and 2 strikes. By the way, in his last side session, Mike Matheny said before the game that Adam talked about it being the best that he's had since the start of spring. Throwing on the side, working on some of the things that he was, you know, if he felt he was a little tardy in some of the areas in terms of the arm catching up. There's a ground ball that's hit to second. Jerko makes the play. Follow the Cardinals live with MLB.com at Bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment with Game Day Live, Game Day highlights, StatCast news, and more. Find it for your phone and tablet.
So to push that a little further, Dan, you have a good side session. You feel good. Okay, stop thinking about it. Now compete. And I think he's in a better place to do that now. I suspect he's going to have better command here today than we've seen in the first 2 games. So to answer your first question, no, I'm not worried about the control of Adam Wainwright.
Here's an 0-1 pitch to Jay Bruce. He's 11 for 36 with a couple of home runs in his career against the Cardinals right-hander. Mentioned last night was the first time that Holiday had hit a home run at home since 2014. And this has basically been a year from the last time that Adam Wainwright made a start here at Busch Stadium. It was April 19th of last season. When he was hurt with the Achilles, he was at the plate, and that was against the Milwaukee Brewers. Old Uncle Charlie, there it is. The strikeout. First of the afternoon for Adam Wainwright.
Uncle Charlie, still tough to hit. Starts out about letter high, and look where it ends up. Short of Yadier Molina, he has to block it. I don't know how you hit that pitch. The sharpness of the angle as it's breaking downward. Right at the plate. It's not breaking early, it's breaking late.
Here's Devin Mesoraco, who pitch hit late last night, struck out. Off to a slow start, 2 for 20. And Rick mentioned the issues that he's had with injuries last couple of years. All-Star 2 seasons ago, but last year very tough to get in the position of being a catcher when you don't have your base. Into center, Pritchett. 6 up, 6 down for Adam Wainwright. Midway through 2, no score. Always great to say hello to Jim Hayes.
I'm with the general manager, John Mozeliak, and John, we're seeing the Cardinals with a bit of a power surge. Are you surprised by the power that they're showing?
Well, not really. You know, I do feel like when we were putting this club together, and you really reflect back on last year, and we certainly struggled with hitting home runs, but I think like the positive sign we're seeing in the early part of this year has really been our ability to have extra base hits. And you know, last night was great to see, and hopefully it's something that we can build with.
How difficult a challenge is it for Mike Matheny to get so many guys at bats to try to keep everyone sharp?
You know, when you think about like putting a roster together and you're trying to create that depth, and then trying to help define those roles, and then when you mix in how to keep them going every day, it's not easy. And I met with Mike this morning, and he was just, you know, talking to me about some of the difficulties he's having getting some of these guys going and playing, and it's tough, but it's a good problem to have.
You have some injured guys, one of them Tejada, who we were told originally could be back tomorrow or Monday. Is there an update on him?
Well, he will likely play 9 tonight for Springfield. If all goes well, he will return to St. Louis tomorrow. As far as activation goes, we'll just see how he responds in the morning.
And you guys have a tough decision to make because you have a number of guys who are playing very well right now.
Well, that's right. And, you know, trying to navigate really playing time, development, and the needs of the Major League club are all things that will be factored in. But, you know, certainly it'll be nice to get him back. But when you look at what Diaz has been able to do, it certainly has helped us in those 2 weeks of his absence.
Moss with the base hit. What has impressed you most about what we're seeing from Diaz?
Well, obviously from an offensive standpoint, it's just been great to see. You know, you look back second half of last year, what he did in the fall league, you started to believe that bat was coming around. And then from a defensive standpoint, he's really looked good. And, you know, when you balance those two elements together, put that at shortstop, it's been fun to watch.
Hazelbaker has also been fun to watch. What are you seeing from him?
You know, obviously he's definitely a surprise in terms of our St. Louis fan base. But when you think about when we acquired him last year and ever since AA and AAA, he's been hitting. And so I think the one thing about him that is a nice fit for the Cardinals is that he brings speed and brings defense to the club.
Fly ball to center. Mo, as always, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, Danny.
All right, good stuff. Boy, what a tough decision Sunday morning if Tejada is indeed activated.
I appreciate Mo always being so direct and open about what's going on with the club, and his assessments are always terrific. Good visit with Jim there, but that is a difficult problem because you've got so many guys going well. If you've got a team that's struggling offensively, you're just looking for a spark. But right now, you just don't want to mess the spark up because it's happening, and Diaz is a part of that right now.
Here's Aledmys Diaz, 11 for 27 to start the year. You know, we talk about the home runs, and that will roll foul. I thought the hardest hit ball, and you talked about it in the open, the line drive, and how the Cardinals are hitting a lot of balls on the button, but that ball he hit to third was scary.
Well, I thought he was going to knock Suarez back into left field. That was just a rope. I know over 100 miles an hour off the bat. You could just tell visually Suarez barely could see the ball. Was surprised he caught it. And I'm a little surprised by the bat speed of Diaz, but I think his defensive abilities have surprised me more personally. He looked a little clunky to me at the beginning of spring training. A little bit slow-footed, a little unsure of his steps, but he has gotten smoother and smoother at that position. It's nice to see.
1 ball, 1 strike on Diaz. We're told the move by Brandon Finnegan is okay, not great. As he works from the third base side of the rubber. Nice block by Mesoraco. So after every pitch, Bill Miller steps in, talks to the runners. You get a look at the block textbook there by Mesoraco. And Billy telling me that they have before every single game video, and it's already decided at that point in time what a pitcher is to the plate. From the time it released The ball is released out of the hand to the mitt. And so they've got times for fastball, breaking ball, and slide step.
So you know you've got a pitcher's time, and you add that to the catcher's time, and you know the player's time getting down to second, and you throw those things together and say, is this a good bet to go or not? What you miss on that, if you just think about numbers only, is the jump the player gets off the base. That's why Yachty steals a base every once in a while. Well, that doesn't compute with the times, but the instinct wins the day.
Isn't it amazing, though, to have that already at his disposal because of video? That's how the game has changed, and that's how it's scouted and looked at.
Great information to have. But great information in the hands of a professional is even better.
Yeah. See if they start the runner. They do not on the 3-2. Diaz went to get it. Hit out to center, and it is dropped. Schebler came in, then went back and dropped it. They always say the hardest ball for a center fielder, the one that's hit right at him.
And another ball hit hard by Diaz. I'm not sure if that was knuckling or not, but it was smoked. And the wrong read by Schebler was the problem. Coming in, then he's got a shot at catching it anyway, but the glove needed to be just a little bit longer.
He was in left field last night. Gets the start for Billy Hamilton today. Do I go back? Do I go to second? Do I go back? Do I go to second? Okay. I'm going to second. No man's land.
Just don't pass it.
Don't do that.
That hasn't happened, has it?
Well, we're talking about Adam Wainwright now.
Okay.
I talked to Randall Grichuk about that play, and he said, well, first of all, I said, you know you passed him, right? He said, yes. I said, did you know it at the time? Yes. I said, what were you thinking? He said, I was praying that when I was running around the bases that no one caught it, because all of a sudden I'm out of home run. He knew it. The Brewers did not. Wainwright pushes it foul. 1 ball, 1 strike. I mentioned the other day, for the pitchers that really can handle the bat, Wainwright one of them, and it happened in Atlanta, where the Cardinals with their pitchers, especially with this type of play, a runner at second base, third baseman will charge, try to get the lead man. They'll show bunt, pull back, swing away to right.
Well, you do that especially against teams that defend aggressively in a bunt situation. The Cardinals always do that. So do the Reds. They're charging hard. They're not conceding the sacrifice. Some teams, and the Brewers are one, they teach their players, if the other team's going to give us an out, just take it. Don't make it worse by trying to make the spectacular play. Just get the out at first base. We'll deal with that. And a lot of teams feel that way. The Cardinals want that lead runner, and the Reds are defending this right now to get that lead runner.
Look at Schebler in center with the pitcher up, how deep he is. Make a case for all 3 outfielders being fairly deep for Adam Wainwright.
No question about it, they're deep. Adam does have the ability to hit a home run, but perhaps a little too much respect.
Homered in his first ever major league at bat against the Giants. 2-2 the count. Thus far this year, Adam is 0 for 3. He does have 1 sacrifice as he checks the bat. It's another 2-2. Wainwright pops it up. Infield fly, and it's put away. Let's turn to our Toyota key to the game with Rick Horton.
We've seen so much offense from the Cardinals lately. The key to this game is to just keep swinging. And don't overthink it. Whatever you've been doing, don't change a thing. The comfortable at-bats, the aggressive at-bats, just ride it as long as you can. And I think the corollary to that is you need to keep swinging off the bench, which could be a key factor in this game that we mentioned earlier. The right-handed relievers of Cincinnati, the left-handed pinch hitters at Mike Matheny's disposal off the bench.
Cardinals with 13 hits last night. 6 of the 13 were home runs. First pitch to Carpenter is taken for a ball. 13 of the 14 runs that the Cardinals scored were via the home run. And if you want to add in what the Reds did, 16 of the 17 total last night came from a home run.
Makes you want to run and bunt less when you've got an offense that's scoring via the home run, doesn't it?
Earl Weaver is smiling right now.
Yes, he is.
Here's a 1-0. Taken high. Well, to give you a little perspective of just how good this has been for the Cardinals. 10 or more runs scored in 4 of the last 6 games, Rick. And in that kind of span, 4 of 6 games, 10 or more runs scored. That's happened twice for the Cardinals in the last 80 years. It's incredible. The 2-0 pitch here to Matt Carpenter. 2 balls, 1 strike. He thought that was a bit high. Similar pitch that Holiday was called out on. This is game number 11 of this long journey of the 2016 season. Cardinals come in 6-4. The Reds are an even 5-5. Here's a 2-1 pitch to Carpenter. Out to center field. That ball will get down and a run will score. It's 1-0 Cardinals. Carpenter now has driven in 10.
You talked about the deep outfield play for the Cincinnati Reds. A base hit to center field and no chance to throw out Brandon Moss at the plate. There's the swing by Carpenter, soft liner to center. The break by Moss off of second base. Kind of an average runner, but no chance to throw him out at the plate because the outfield was so deep.
Now Stephen Piscotty walked his first time up.
Not only does Moss score from second, but Diaz is able to go first to third on a single to center field.
Runners at the corners and an 0-1 pitch to Piscotty. Another aspect of this run of offense for the Cardinals, when you put up these kind of numbers and 10 or more runs for the last 6 games, you also seem to drive in a lot of runs with 2 outs, and the Cardinals have been doing that a bunch, and they do that here in the second inning. The 1-1. Piscotty with a high fly ball into deep center field. Schebler back. It is gone. Piscotty his second. The Cardinals hit another 3-run homer. That's their 4th in the last 2 games. 4-0 Cardinals. Now Holiday. The air looms large.
Sure does.
4-0 St. Louis. Holiday struck out looking his first time up.
Keep swinging.
Man, is this something?
Saw Whitey and Mary Lou Herzog before the game today. They were coming here to say hello to Jim Riggleman, who's the bench coach for Cincinnati here at the ballpark today. Whitey's wondering whether the ball's juiced a little bit.
On a hop to Zach Cozart, and he makes the play. The reaction of the home run. All 4 runs scored with 2 outs. Piscotty, this 3-run shot. Hey, get up, says Jaime. And so did Mike Shannon probably. Get up, baby. Get up.
Oh, yeah.
Piscotty, that breaks it 0 for 9. He's been on base twice with a walk in that home run. Here's Adam Duvall. Remember, the Cardinals had a 4-0 lead against the Atlanta Braves with Wainwright on the mound. A game that you know he'd love to have back. Cardinals won. He took a no decision. I saw Mary Lou as well, and she said, Dan, Whitey is excited for an evening with Whitey Herzog. I said, well, he should be. She told me, though, to be ready to cut him off because he's rambling too much.
He's got a lot to say.
I said, you sound like every wife in America.
And I can promise you every broadcaster's wife in America.
Well, that's without question. Duvall, a modest 5-game hitting streak at .353 during this streak at .300 overall to start the year. The 1-2 curveball and a strikeout for Adam Wainwright. St. Louis Cardinals baseball is brought to you by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. And get Major League Baseball coverage. T-Mobile has doubled its 4G LTE in the last 3 years. Great setting here for baseball at Busch Stadium. Scott Schebler. He looked to be a little bit unnerved after that error in center field. The ball that dropped in front, got a late break on that. And he hits a high fly ball lifted into right center. Piscotty with room. And quickly 2 outs. 6 is a serious number and on the run. When the Cardinals score 6, any size drink is just 50 cents the next day. That's coffee fountain or frozen drinks. When they score, you pour at the nearest on the run. You earned it. On the run has been busy here lately.
I'll bet they don't run out of drinks, though.
No, sir.
Watch out.
Brandon Finnegan, his 3rd hit. He's now 3 for 6 to start the year, and that's the first base hit, first base runner for the Cincinnati Reds. brings in Zach Cozart.
Been very tough with the Cincinnati Reds. First 10 games of the season, they're without 3/5 of their rotation. They've had injuries. Homer Bailey, they'll get back at some point. John Lamb is out. And the guy they're really excited about, again, this is Mark Riggins, their pitching coach, talking about Cody Reed, the left-hander, the third left-hander that came over in the trade. They think he may be down the road the best of all of them that they got in that trade. He's off to a good start. Big, strong guy, throws hard, knows what he's doing, and they're just trying to season him a little bit more. But they'll see Cody Reed in their rotation before it's all over, and of course Homer Bailey, and that'll make them a better team.
Here's a 1-1 and a base hit into right field. Finnegan stops at second base. So the Reds have their first runner in scoring position. Eugenio Suarez rounded out to short, first time up. Wainwright has now walked a man. He has struck out 2, given up 2 hits and no runs thus far. Two outs, 2 on. Good curveball. Rick, at one point the Reds last year had 64 consecutive starts by a rookie pitcher, which is an all-time record. Tough to win games like that.
No doubt.
The 0-1.
At some point as a starter, as a major league player, you rely on experience to get you through tough times. If you don't have any, sometimes you look to the experience of others. If the others don't have any, then what do you do?
They had 9 rookie pitchers make at least 1 start. That was a franchise record for them. All told, 110 starts by rookies in a 162 game season. 1-2 the count.
That was the worst curveball we've seen Adam Wainwright throw here this afternoon. He got away with that. He hung it, and Suarez just missed it. That could have been a problem. We haven't seen too many hangers from Wainwright. First 2 starts, curveball was not sharp each time.
Fly ball, shallow left, long way to go for Holiday. He is there and makes the catch. Red Strand 2. Cardinals on top. It's 4-0. Racing heads to Bristol starting at 11:30 only on Fox. Watch it live on Fox Sports Go. Rick is a huge fan of Dale Earnhardt Jr., so he'll be glued to the TV for about a half hour or so and then get ready for baseball here at the ballpark. Randall Grichuk leads it off, followed by Yadier Molina and then Brandon Moss. Randal Grichuk started this season 1 for 15. He's part of our BJC Healthcare difference maker. He, along with Yadier Molina.
I thought the key to Grichuk was the 2 walks. You talked about him walking more, not walking very often a year ago. He had 2 walks in Atlanta off the bench, and I thought that was a good sign that maybe he was coming out of his funk because he was seeing the ball better. He wasn't chasing breaking pitches out of the zone. When he's able to stay off pitches he can't hit, shrink the zone a little bit, he's so dangerous at the plate.
A shift on here for Randal Grichuk. Had an interesting conversation with Randal before the game. He said on opening day he walked into the video room just to say hi to some of the guys that had not been down in spring training. Looks up, MLB Network is on, and it's Mark DeRosa and Preston Wilson, and the sound was down and they were showing all kinds of clips from Grichuk. And he stopped his conversation. He said, hold on, turn on the sound. I want to hear what's going on here. And what they were talking about was good clips and bad clips of Randal Grichuk. And so then the guys in the studio grabbed a bat, had a tee, and they said, well, what did you do in watching Randal Grichuk to try to get out of a slump? Here's a 2-1. And a ground ball that's hit to short. 1 away. He said there was 3 different things they did. A tee drill, set it up inside. A slider machine, where all it did was throw sliders. And then also a hip drill that they did, and a soft toss drill. So then DeRosa tweeted at Randal Grichuk, and he said, hey, bro, 800 people telling you what to do and how to hit. Add us to the list. So Randal tweeted back to him and said, I've actually been working with the slider machine. And that was at the suggestion of John Mabry, the Cardinals hitting coach. So he had been doing that in Atlanta with the slider machine, the pitching machine set up to throw sliders. But he said it's really gotten him out of a funk, what John Mabry said. And Randal wanted to make sure that everybody knew he wasn't just taking tips from Mark DeRosa and Preston Wilson, that John Mabry really did help him get out of this slump.
Found it very interesting what Mike Matheny said on this subject yesterday in his scrum before the game. He was talking about the hitters on his team. They were saying, well, what are you doing with? He stopped everybody. He said, hey, I'm not doing anything. I do not talk hitting with our players. I do not. They got enough voices in their ears, very capable voices in Mabry and Miller and Derek May. I'll talk about other things with them. Their health, their heart, their motivation, all those things. But I'm not going to talk mechanics at all about hitting. And I think that's wise.
Here's Brandon Moss against the shift, picked up a base hit to left and came around to score, part of a 4-run second inning. And for Moss, that's his 6th hit this year and his first single. Everything else had been an extra base hit. Fights it off. Suarez. And the Cardinals go in order. We head to the 4th, and the Cardinals have a lead of 4-0. St. Louis at the ballpark in the St. Louis Union Station Hotel. Choose one of our Cardinal baseball packages. Score for your team. HiltonStLouis.com or 314-421-1776. Here's Joey Votto. Votto hits it the other way. Slicing, and Holiday can't get there. And Votto trots into second with a leadoff double. Let's take a look at our Chevy Fox tracks.
Votto jumping on the first pitch. We saw a lot of this in game one of this series. Just jump on the first pitch. That one down in the middle of the plate. Not sure Matt takes a very good route at this ball. He goes a little sideways and not back enough, and not saying that would be an easy play slicing away from him, but he did not seem to get a very good read off the bat of Joey Votto, who hits the ball very hard the other way, doesn't he?
He does. Great power the other way. We saw that last night. 3-run homer. Here's Brandon Phillips. And in their home ballpark too, Rick, I mean, his swing is tailor-made too.
Really
because
is.
You can just flip the ball to left and it'll carry.
Brandon Phillips also first ball hitting. We had an interesting time with Mike Shannon before the game today, and he was talking about how short the game was last night in terms of time.
Let me ask you this. Is there anything else that's well, to describe time with Mike Shannon that's not interesting?
Oh, no, it's always interesting. But he said, have you ever seen a 14-3 game in this era that only lasts 2 hours and 31 minutes?
Right.
And I think the first ball hitting is part of that. The fact that the runs scored on home runs is another part. And we had no pitching changes in between innings, or in the middle of innings, I should say. There's Mike, John Rooney, Mike Claiborne, and I think I recognize that gentleman. Hall of Famer Red Schoendienst. We love him.
The 2-1 pitch. Check swing. And he did go 2-2. Phillips grounded out to second base, first time up. Two. Something the Cardinals have incorporated, by the way, for many of our fans that do come from out of town on the weekends, which is roughly about 60 to 70% of the fan base on a weekend game. Make sure you stop by the Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum. Today it was Jason Isringhausen as part of Saturday signings. They've added that to the list of things to do when you come to the ballpark. I need to get you that gig. Let's get you over there.
May 21st.
May 21st, I'll be first in line.
I bet you will be.
It's tough to get your autograph, so I'm going to head over there and get it.
Okay. Better say please.
Who are you, Rick? Hey, sign this. You don't yell at kids or anything if they don't say please, do you?
No, of course not.
You're a nice guy about it. You're always signing.
The funny ones are when the guy comes up and his kid's not there and he's thinking, boy, I should get. He goes, may say something like, look, I don't really care about you. I don't really want this, but my kid does.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Good to meet you too.
Right. Here's a 3-2 pitch to Phillips. Taken high. Did not go. So a double, a walk, and it brings in Jay Bruce. What's happening around baseball? Well, Bartolo Colon, 219th career win. The Nationals off to their best start in team history with Dusty Baker at the helm. And Jake Arrieta will get the start today at Wrigley against Colorado. By the way, for Colon, number 219, that ties him with Pedro Martinez in terms of wins for a Dominican-born pitcher. Also tied with Kenny Rogers. And now time is called by Molina.
Adams has come out of his delivery on a couple pitches this inning. The cutter, he's underneath it. He's thrown a couple pitches up in the zone. Yachty just trying to get him back straight again.
Did you ever have a catcher come out and visit with you and was able to spot different things mechanically?
Never mechanically. No, it was more what they saw. And I mean, maybe you're not finishing. Now, that's not a mechanical thing per se, but it relates to mechanics. It's like, hey, let it go. Or, you know, stay on top. They may say that, stay on top, but there's some mechanical things that result in you not staying on top of a pitch. But they're just telling you the results they're seeing. Coming out of your hand, it doesn't look right. It looks flat.
Hit the other way, base hit. Votto being waved in. And he will score to make it a 4-1 St. Louis lead. The RBI for Bruce, number 11, to lead their club.
It's a perfect example, this hit, of a hit you'd say, well, it's just a bloop hit the other way. But the reason it was a bloop hit, it was a hanging pitch. And it was something he could handle. So the bloop hit goes to left. Holiday charging it. No chance at home. The cutoff is Carpenter. Jerko, the shortstop, covering third to make sure there's no advancement by Phillips.
Strike two, Devin Mesoraco. Lined out to center.
Always a place to go on the field.
Always. Even for the right fielder on that play. Doesn't necessarily come into play, but always a place to go. 0-2. And the 0-2 pitch outside. This combination of Molina and Wainwright, they know each other so well, closing in on the all-time battery combo in terms of games started, which was set by Tim McCarver and Bob Gibson. Ground ball hit left side. Can they turn two? Out at second. Safe at first.
Mesoraco runs well. Ball was not hit very hard, so the end result, Moss tries to come off the bag, cheat a little bit, but not in time.
Adam Duvall struck out looking on a very good breaking ball first time up. One of the better curveballs from Wainwright that we've seen today, which has been much better, I think, that pitch.
It has been sharper.
Good cutter. Strike one.
Cutter's been a little inconsistent this season too for Adam. He'll throw that good sharp one we saw there, just moving away from the right-handed batter sharply. And then there's some that he gets underneath and it just sits there in the middle of the plate. Again, not typical Adam Wainwright.
Here's the 0-1. Cutter again. How about a double play ball? Tough to get out there. Run will score. And there's two down. Cuts a lead to 4-2. So he got the ground ball, but slowly hit. We know Jaime Garcia is very good here at home. What about Adam Wainwright? Lowest ERA. Their home ballpark, Busch Stadium, and it has been the rightful place for Adam. 2.61. Just back of Jared Weaver and also Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw picked up another win last night against San Francisco. Here's Schebler, who fly to center. 0 for 1. Cutter in on the hands of the left-handed hitting Schebler. 0-2. Pitching has been very good this homestand. The starters, 4 games, they are 3-1 with a 2.25 ERA. And a ground ball that's hit to second. Jerko, off balance throw, makes the play. The Reds play 2. And we move to the bottom of the 4th here in St. Louis. St. Louis on top, 4-2. Live look inside Ballpark Village, and again we say hello to Jim Hayes. Jimmy.
Hey, Danny, we've seen an uptick in the offense, of course, more so with pinch hitters. Cards already have 6 pinch hit homers. They had 4 all of last season. Cards pinch hitters batting .563 collectively this year. Small sample size. They hit .218 last season. Mike Matheny told me he knew the bench would be better this year, and we're seeing some of that. He says the pinch hit homers are unexpected. As he put it, they could come in bunches or not at all. Dan, he thinks the real plus is that his bench guys are building confidence. They can sit for 7 or 8 innings and come in and change the ball game.
And Jimmy, he also said we have shown the league that they have a lot to consider after seeing what we've done, didn't he?
Absolutely. When they start looking at tape, they know that they need certain matchups because they got a number of guys off the bench that can do some damage, and we're seeing a lot of long balls off the bench so far, Dan.
Thanks, Jim. And one of those guys that the Cardinals are counting on coming off the bench, Jed Jerko, gets a start here today.
16 home runs a year ago.
He's averaged 16 the last 3 years.
And that's in a pitcher's ballpark.
Petco out in San Diego. A career .262 hitter against left-handed pitching, so he gets the start today against Finnegan. Chops it foul to Chris Maloney. Reds may want to sign him up to play third.
A little harsh.
Suarez, the third baseman, near the line. Here's a 1-2 inside. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Mike Matheny also talked about the replay system. I asked him what was going on with that before our first pitch last night. He said their side was okay, and the Red side, for whatever reason, they didn't have a couple of looks at different angles with cameras. So we were playing with a situation where you had, and he didn't like this term, but unlimited crew chief replays. He said, you know, all of a sudden you start having that, and it's going to take a long time to finish a 9-inning game.
We had that on opening day in Pittsburgh, and it was the same deal. It was working fine on the Pittsburgh side, but not on the Cardinals side. So the Cardinals brought it to the umpire's attention, and they had to had to do away with it. I mean, you have to be fair. One side can't have a better look at replays than the other. You have a fairness issue, obviously, that results. But the unlimited reviews sounds like a long day at the ballpark if you're not careful.
Here's a 2-2 and a foul ball. Chris Maloney was a former third baseman, first baseman, and outfielder. Cardinals third base coach who managed a number of years in the minor leagues. We see him at third, and we wish Jose Oquendo all the best. You know, he's probably watching down in Florida right now. For those who don't know, Jose had knee surgery. He's had knee issues for a number of years and just wanted to take care of that. Did not want to be a burden to the team, so he takes what looks to be the entire year off. 3-2. Right center. Schebler is over and makes the catch.
Cardinals need to do something this afternoon that they've been doing all season long. I say all season long, it's only been 10 days, but what they've been doing, even in spring training, is adding on. You score, then you score again, you score again, you keep pushing. And with the Reds getting that 2-run top of the fourth, the game feels pretty close right now. And you know, Adam Wainwright let a win get away his last start. Simple as that. Should have won the game. You mentioned that earlier. Had enough runs support to win 2 games. So you just don't want to see that happen again. You want to add on.
Aledmys Diaz reached on an error back in the second. Good changeup. And it's 0-2, and that's the pitch we talked about with Finnegan. He's trying to incorporate that more and more as a starter.
Sells that well. Good arm action, and the ball just doesn't come out. It just dies down and away. Perfect arm action. And when a pitcher's confident in his changeup, he'll throw it 0-2. Old school people will say never throw a changeup 0-2. But if you have a good one and it has good movement, why not?
0-2, a base hit. Finnegan made a mistake, and a base hit out to left for Diaz. Ball is just jumping off his bat. Power stats brought to you by Kubota. Cardinals with 10 different players with a home run in their lineup. The Giants with 11. And 4 teams are tied with 8. I want to go back to your comment on an 0-2 pitch and you don't throw a changeup. At least some feel that way. Why is that?
Yeah, well, we were headed there, and I mean, he did end up throwing an off-speed pitch. It was a curveball. Changeup might have been a better choice. Diaz didn't look good on the changeup. The thought is when a hitter has 2 strikes on him, they're going to be back anyway, protecting the plate. So if you're in a defensive protecting mode, a changeup is not going to fool you as much because your hands are going to be back more than normal. Now, the way hitters don't mind striking out now, I'm not sure that's true anymore.
Here's a 1-0.
Not as many short swings, taking the ball the other way approaches with 2 strikes.
Big gap in left center field. Wainwright popped up with 1 out, 2 on, his first time up. One and 2. That's funny how it works out that way. You have your own bobblehead, and of course that day you've got a pitch. That's the case here today.
Wasn't planned. 20% chance of it happening.
And he strikes out. Don't see that very often from Adam Wainwright.
He's in a bunting slump, isn't he?
And he was the bunting champion in spring training.
He beat Patrick Wisdom There was a players champion. They had an intense competition, a players champion and a pitchers champion. And they played in the finals in the bunting competition with everybody watching. Adam won. And there was a prize at the end of the day.
A day off.
A day off, which he was very excited about.
It was Easter Sunday, and Adam had that day off. A ball to Carpenter. Single with 2 outs. Picked up an RBI back in the second. And hit a 1-hopper to Brandon Phillips, his first time up.
Are you trying to lead us to the thought that there may be a bunting championship jinx?
I think you were leading that way. Don't throw this on me, Ord.
I think we were traveling down that same path.
Unfortunately, I have to agree. 2 balls, no strikes with 2 outs and a runner at first base. A little bit of a shift here for Carpenter. We've seen more and more teams use the shift against Matt, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm sure the numbers bear out that they should, but the way that he sprays the ball doesn't make a lot of sense. We've seen his at bats from day one in 2011 when he came up.
I think this mini shift that you called it makes some sense, because I would say uses all fields, but you don't often see him hit the ball right down the third base line. So you can move the third baseman off the bag and kind of everybody else spread out a little bit. I think that's what they're trying to do with him.
Third walk issued by Finnegan. Carpenter leads the club in walks. That's number 8. They're starting to get loose out in the Reds bullpen. Matter of fact, one of their pitchers is jumping rope. Either preparing for Manny Pacquiao or preparing to come into the 6th.
Good luck with that. And the clock is on Mark Riggins.
If you're Brian Price, you're saying, man, I need my starter to go deep in the game. Last night, Tim Melville did not. 3 innings, and their bullpen has been horrendous. Last 4 games, they've had an ERA close to 10, 13 walks issued by their bullpen the last 4 games.
8 pitchers in their bullpen, and the one who's jumping rope is the one left-hander.
Tony Cingrani.
Probably could have predicted that.
Yep. Odd, different. Wait a minute, you were. Oh, you were left-handed.
I knew some of them. Piscotty, Dan, a year ago hit close to 400 with runners in scoring position. After coming up from the minor leagues, he was the minor league player of the year.
Hit 393. Here's a 1-0. 2 balls, no strikes. Played in 63 regular season games last year. Had 47 hits as he arrived on July 21st. That was a game against the Chicago White Sox, and the Cardinals kept putting him out there, and he kept delivering. The 2-0. He might be, Rick, the last of the great wave of young players coming through the minor league system, whether it was Grichuk, Carpenter, Adams, now Piscotty. The one thing the Cardinals have down in their minor leagues right now in strength is some really good arms led by Alex Reyes. The #1 prospect is Blake Wood begins to throw.
They have some good position players that are younger.
Right.
Particularly shortstops.
The 2-1. 2-2. Interesting to see that Randall Grichuk has moved to that portion of the dugout to get a better look, along with Michael Wacha of Brandon Finnegan. Two and two the count with 2 outs, 2 on, and a 2-run lead. Hit sharply to third, and the catch made by Suarez. takes a hit away and probably 2 runs from scoring. Cardinals strand 2. They have left 4 on in this game. We head to the 5th. Nice play from the Reds' third baseman. All right, Scotty, thanks. 4-2 our score here in the top of 5. We will see the Chicago Cubs on Monday night as Finnegan gets another base hit. It's stuck under the wall, so that'll allow him to head to second base. And he's 2 for 2, the Reds pitcher.
4 hits on the season now for Finnegan. If the pitching thing doesn't work out, maybe he's got another job waiting for him. Swings the bat well. Wainwright's pitch count is low. That was pitch number 56. A lot of the first ball hitting contributing to that.
Here's Cozart showing bunt. Cardinals wearing their Saturday jerseys. The alternate jersey. It's off-white, very reminiscent of the flannels of the past. It's the first time in 80 years the Cardinals featured the city and not the Cardinals name on the front. Fly ball right center. Grichuk is on the move. He won't get there. Couple of hops to the wall. Cozart can run. He'll stop at second. Finnegan will score, and that makes it 4-3. The Cardinals on top. RBI number 2 for Zach Cozart. He's 2 for 3.
Pitch location more center cut than planned. Was supposed to be down and in. Here's where Adam just has to settle down and not let the negativity overcome the fact that he's got a 4-3 lead. Working in the 5th inning. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to relive the mistakes you've made in the last couple of innings. Just get out of it. So easy to say that, so hard to do it.
Here's a 1-0. Fly ball left field. Holiday going back. Holiday with the catch. Cozart will tag up from second to third.
Important for the Reds to take the extra base here. Smart base running by Cozart on a ball that initially fooled Holiday. By the time he caught it, he was going back away from the infield, so no chance to stop and throw. And that's where, as a base runner, you realize, you know, if I go back and tag up, if it's over his head, I'll score anyway. So why not tag up in case he catches it?
Do you pitch to Joey Votto in this spot?
No.
Infield is drawn in.
I think
Runner
you
at
pitch,
third.
I think you pitch around him. You pitch off the plate. See if he'll get himself out. Infield in. Joey Votto, about a 500 hitter, isn't he?
In his career, a .319 hitter with runners in scoring position against the Cardinals, and the first pitch is tapped foul. Well, this may change the mindset of this at bat. Strike one.
And the contrarian view would be, and I understand it, you wouldn't want to walk a guy on purpose in a close game and create more RBI opportunities for the guys that follow.
The 0-1. 0-2. Trying to bust him in. You know, Joey Votto, on a poor team a year ago, still finished third in the MVP balloting last year. It was Harper, Goldschmidt, then Votto. Think about this, Rick. He was on base 319 times last year. 319.
143 walks.
Incredible.
Franchise record.
And the 0-2 at the infield end. Hit sharply to second. Jerko looks back the runner. They pitch to him. It works. 2 down.
Infield in. Jerko not very far from Votto. Not much time to react, but he's looked good defensively here this afternoon. He looks more comfortable at second than he does at short to me.
That has been his primary position in professional baseball, although he does have playing time at short, not a lot. Did play it in college. He told us he's comfortable wherever they put him. And he made a very good play in the first play of the game. That backhanded stab off the bat of Cozart. Breaky ball, fair ball, a hanger, and Phillips knew what to do with it. Thinking 2. This game is tied, and he's diving into second base and safe. Adam Wainwright pointing into the dugout, asking for a review. They'll take a look at it, but regardless, this game is tied at 4.
Percentage of pitches that Adam has made mistakes on has increased as the game has gone on. He was sharper earlier. That's just a hanging curveball, middle. And a good call at second base.
So the Reds return the favor with a 2-out RBI. Was 4-0, now 4-4. Derek Lilliquist out to visit. He's got 10 more seconds. Pitch count, as Rick mentioned, only at 64. And a strike to Jay Bruce. That's only the 10th pitch in this inning, and yet you look up, Reds have played it 2 after 2 back in the 4th.
Really don't see a velocity issue with Adam Wainwright this year. That last pitch at 91. He's averaged about 91 here this afternoon, 90 to 93 with his fastball. That's pretty typical the last 5 years of Adam Wainwright. Nothing unusual about that. It's more command than anything else.
Mike Matheny was asked about the issues of the first 2 starts for Wainwright, and that's exactly what he said. It's all about command. Two balls, 1 strike. Runner at second. Brandon Phillips. Shift on here for Jay Bruce.
Just reminded of that experience that anybody who's a golfer understands, where you're working on something, you get it fixed, and then you work on it, you get it fixed in the driving range, you go out there and you got it and you're right where you need to be, and then you fall back into your old habits and you can't get it back. You just kind of tailspin back into the bad habits you had prior. I think that's what his start's been like today.
Oh, a diving stop by Moss. Takes a hit and an RBI away. Ranging to his right. It takes that hit away. What a play. Brandon Moss at first base. Watch the games on television. You can now stream games live on your mobile device. Just head to your app store, download the free Fox Sports Go app, log in, stream the Cardinals wherever you go. Brandon Phillips, a 2-out double to tie the game at 4 as we're in the bottom of the 5th. And it's Holiday, Grichuk, and Molina. Matt is 0 for 2 today. Was called out on strikes back in the first and also grounded out to short.
It's almost as if Adam Wainwright's had 2 outings here this afternoon. He retired the first 8 batters he faced, had a couple of strikeouts, really not a lot of deep counts there, and looked free and easy and not many mistakes. But after the Finnegan base hit in the 3rd inning, second time through the lineup, a different story.
Eerily reminiscent of the game in Atlanta. Here's a 1-1. I think we saw that gentleman on the right last night, same spot. Big Matt Holliday fan. Wearing that Holiday jersey. 1-2, lifted out to center field. Schebler. One out here in the bottom of 5. The offense through 10 games, red hot. Then you think about taking away the first 3 games in Pittsburgh. The last 7 have been ridiculous. I asked Mike Matheny, by the way, today, Ricky, about Randal Grichuk. I said, how do you balance a young player, sitting him like you did in Atlanta, to where he doesn't lose confidence, but yet you're doing the best for him to get on track? And he said, one of the things that we've been able to do, he said, people forget I've been here now. This is year number 5. So I was here the first day that Randal got here. And we always made it a point, and he brought up Colton Wong too, to have open lines of communication, so they do have a full understanding that we're trying to help them. Don't look at this as punishment. We're trying to get you on track.
And here's why it feels weird if you're Colton Wong or Randall Grichuk and you're getting 2 or 3 off days the first week of the season. I mean, the timing just feels funny to you because you feel that, hey, I'm going to be a centerpiece of this team offensively or defensively. I ought to be out there every day. If it happens in June, July, or August, you say, well, you know, a couple days you just need them off, and it's the ebb and flow of being a baseball player. I think it just requires a little more managerial feel for Mike Matheny to handle it when it's early, because you don't want to send a message that you're not my guy. You're just not my guy right now.
Exactly. And I think the point is timing, as you said.
Yeah.
Grichuk gets underneath it. Hits it out to shallow left. Cozart makes the catch. And there's 2 outs. The bold and sweet flavor of strawberry mixed with the tart taste of lemonade, blended to perfection to cool you down all summer long at McDonald's. You know, you look at the middle infield here for the Reds. This is Yadier Molina. Cozart and Phillips are 2 of the best defenders in the Central up the middle. His last full year for Zach Cozart, and that was in 2014, he was second in defensive runs saved with 19. And then you got Phillips, a 4-time Gold Glover. You're wondering, defensive runs saved. That's the number of runs a player saved or cost their team on defense relative to an average player. So plus 19 is pretty darn good.
He's the finalist for the Gold Glove that year in 2014. Phillips has plenty of hardware.
So does the guy at the plate.
I'll say.
Pitch count at 94 for Finnegan. He is due up 4th for the Reds. And Molina is swinging away on 3-0. The way that Finnegan's swinging the bat, I'm not sure you want that bat out of the lineup. He's 2 for 2 today.
Did a pinch hit somebody better?
Not so sure. And there's a walk, number 4, issued by Finnegan. So a 2-out walk extends the inning to Brandon Moss, who made a very nice play moments ago. Right-hander Blake Wood has been throwing in the pen.
More wisdom from Mark Riggins. You know, you think about teaching pitching to young players, and I think sometimes it's a mistake to make it such a simplistic, linear thought to say this guy taught me this guy taught me that. You learn from a lot of people, and so when people ask me who taught me how to throw a sinker, it's a lot of people really, but the guy probably that started it and did the most was Mark Riggins, who was my teammate. Sitting out in the bullpen, he held the baseball. We showed Adam Wainwright's grip on the 2-seamer, and he showed me that grip and talked about finger pressure just sitting in the bullpen somewhere on a road trip in Florida, and grateful to Mark Riggins ever since.
0-1, Moss breaks his bat, and the catch made by Phillips. He's playing in shallow right. We head to the 6th. Wainwright back to work when we come back. Outdoor power equipment, quality, reliability, and value. Find a servicing Steel dealer at steeldealers.com or search STIHL. And taste the all-new Double Jack Burger today, only at Jack in the Box. The Stan the Man Bridge. I'll tell you what, Tony West is braver than I am getting those shots. Folks racing by, and Tony's got the camera ready. That fan is keeping score with us. 4-4 game. Hit out to left. Holiday. It's over his head. Off the bat of Devin Mesoraco. And Holiday's throw into second is offline, and it's a leadoff double. Cincinnati Reds now have 4 doubles in this game against Wainwright, and all 4 have come in the last 2 innings.
Another example of first ball hitting. The Reds are showing they're going to come up swinging. They don't want to see the Wainwright curveball with 2 strikes. So they're jumping on the first pitch they see, trying to get on top of that get ahead fastball, and in on the hands a bit of Mesoraco, but his hands inside the ball, still able to line it over the head of Matt Holliday. Boy, you'd like to see Wainwright pick up a victory in the worst way today.
Duvall into right center. That's down. They'll hold up the runner at third. That's Mesoraco, and the first 2 have reached in. The Cardinals bullpen is getting busy.
You just love a victory somehow, some way, to give him something to build on. Seth Maness, that guy getting ready in a hurry, and he can get ready in a hurry. Just love to see Adam get through this inning, if at all possible.
There's Scott Schebler. It's now 9 hits for Cincinnati. The Cardinals with 4. Big blast for St. Louis was a 3-run homer early in the game by Stephen Piscotty. 2 on and nobody out. Ground ball to the right side. Diving stop by Jerko. A run will score, and that makes it 5-4 Reds. They have their first lead of the afternoon. Rick, you are right on it. I mean, there are a ton of first pitch hitting being done here by the Cincinnati Reds.
Productive at bat for Schebler there. You have confidence that the Cardinals can get to the Reds bullpen. That's the good news. But you just want to get Adam through 6 innings here. Probably will be pinch hit for in the bottom of the 6th inning. But get him through this inning. Give the Cardinals a chance to score in the bottom half. Get him a win. And it won't feel great for Adam Wainwright, but it would feel better.
Here's Jordan Pacheco. He could swing the bat. We saw that with the Colorado Rockies. They just could not find a spot for him defensively. Struggled at catcher, struggled at first base. He'll pinch hit for Brandon Finnegan.
Played some third base, too.
Curveball and a strike. As you mentioned, they like to avoid the curveball, so Wainwright first pitch goes with it.
Exactly right.
And that is hit into right field, and a diving attempt there by Piscotty. Here comes the runner. Here comes the throw. Then the runner is held up late. That's Duvall. Nice effort there from Stephen Piscotty, and then he shows off the arm. This may be it for Adam Wainwright.
So the effort was there by Piscotty, but so was the athleticism. This ball very easily could have gotten past him, but he was able to trap it. And there's the arm. Boy, very close to sneaking under that glove. Could have been worse.
Reds pinch hitters now 3 for 14 on the year. That'll be it for Adam Wainwright. And Mr. Double Play coming in. It's our Chevy call to the pin, and Seth Maness into the ball game when we return. 12th annual Purina Pooches in the Park Day. Come downtown, enjoy a ball game with man's best friend beside you. Limited number of tickets go on sale beginning at 10 a.m. on April 22nd at cardinals.com/pooches. We bring our cat every day to the ballpark.
Yes, we do.
Jim Hayes. In the air, center field. That's Cozart. Catch is made. Runner will tag up from third and score. And that makes it a 6-4 Cincinnati lead. First pitch swinging.
So I guess it's not just Adam Wainwright. Manus normally gets ground balls, but Cozart trying to get that ball in the outfield got the job done.
Kevin Seager starts to throw. You know, the Cardinals had the one-hit complete game from Garcia. And last night it was Carlos Martinez. We did see Jonathan Broxton. And also Matt Bowman. But for the most part, this bullpen is well rested coming into play today.
So Seager's getting ready for Votto, you would expect. Sets up well if Manus is able to get Suarez, which would mean that the 7th inning would be Votto, Phillips, and Bruce, tailor-made for Kevin Seager.
Rick, you are exactly right. Looking at this game today for Adam Wainwright, first 3 innings looked like he was sailing through, and then all of a sudden the 4th hit with a couple of runs, the 5th, and then a tough 6th inning here.
Feel for Adam, you really do.
1-1 is hit down the left field line. That's a fair ball into the corner. Holiday has to dig it out. Will we see a play at the plate? The relay to home, not in time, and that makes it a 7-4 Cincinnati lead. Close the book on Adam Wainwright. 5 1/3, 7 runs, 10 hits, a couple of strikeouts and a walk.
Pacheco able to score from first.
First base open. The Cardinals intentionally walked Joey Votto. Hit a screamer to second with the runner at third base back in the 5th. Doubled and scored in the 4th. And also fly down to center.
Dan, it's hard to watch here today, but there's a time where a 4-0 lead for Adam Wainwright would have been a lock.
Game over.
Maybe a 2-0 lead, 3-0 lead, but 4-0 in the early going. Cardinals haven't been able to add on since, although there's plenty of opportunities to do so. We've seen the Cardinals offense at work, but the Reds sure have shown up offensively today. Give them some credit.
Hyundai pitch arsenal for number 43, Seth Maness.
Fastball, sinker. The changeup he uses more often than people realize. It's a lot of ground balls with his changeup. You think it's a sinker, but check the velocity. It's just taking a little bit off of that sinking fastball. Not a lot of breaking balls from Seth. Mostly sinker changeup.
Real key hit in this game was 2 outs. And Brandon Phillips at the plate. He picked up a double then. He may have a double here. 1 run is in. Phillips off to the races to second. And with that, it's now an 8-4 Cincinnati lead.
Really know what it means for a worm to turn. Never have understood that expression, but wherever that worm is right now, I think the worm turned. All Cardinals in game 1, all Cardinals through 3. It's been all Cincinnati in the middle innings. Maybe that worm will turn back the other way.
Still waiting on the official call here from Mike Matheny. Now he goes to it. This is our Chevy call to the pen. That'll be it for Seth Maness. Came in, got a line out, then 2 doubles and a walk. One of those intentional. Seager's coming on. Tomorrow, it's our Budweiser What's on Tap. Coverage begins at 12:30 here on Fox Sports Midwest. Michael Wacha be his second start at home. He delivered in the home opener with 6 innings and 4 hits, picked up a win. He's really been good against Cincinnati in his career at home. Michael Wacha tomorrow.
Be interested to watch John Moscott pitch. Came up with Cincinnati last year, had 3 starts. One of their prospects, 24-year-old right-hander.
Monday it'll be Mike Leake and John Lackey. Tuesday, Jaime Garcia and Jason Hamill. Cubbies will be here. This place will be rocking. I'll bet it will. So runners at second and third. And Jay Bruce on the first pitch again. Out to shallow left, and Holiday makes the catch. Red strand 2. They pick up 4. They pick up a lead. It's 8-4. Cincinnati leads St. Louis. At 9 for the Cardinals coming up. Trevor Rosenthal and his bobblehead is coming up. That's Saturday, April 30th. 30,000 fans ages 16 and older take home the Closers bobblehead featuring a sound chip courtesy of the Hartford. Visit cardinals.com/promotions for tickets. Well, you get Finnegan out and you face a struggling bullpen. This is Blake Wood, but he's been good.
Has a good fastball and fight down in that bullpen to try to get the baseball when you've got a 8-4 lead and your starting pitcher can't get the win.
I would assume Mr. Finnegan is not very pleased.
In fact, he didn't give up any earned runs. He gave up 4 Cardinal runs, but the error of the center fielder led to some of those runs, actually all of them.
Talk about Blake Wood having pretty good stuff, in particular with his fastball, which gets to 95 to 97 consistently. Probably the hardest thrower out of their pen now that Chapman is gone with the Yankees. 2 balls, no strikes on Jed Jerko, who's 0 for 2.
I think the Cardinals had any idea about an hour ago that they'd be playing catch up in this game. Has a different feel, doesn't it?
And think about the top of the 5th, the lack of total pitches, and yet all the runs it scored.
9 batters in the 5th inning. Cincinnati scores 4 runs, 9 batters, only 15 pitches.
It's hard to do.
15's a good inning. That's a normal inning for a pitcher.
Finnegan struck out 2, walked 4, gave up the home run to Piscotty. Cardinals have only 4 hits today. 3-2 pitch to Jed Jerko. Ground ball hit to short. There's Cozart. 1 away. And Ledmus Diaz, our Kia, in the driver's seat. Where he ranks on this team, and what a start for Ledmus, and what a decision the Cardinals have tomorrow with what looks to be the activation of Ruben Tejada. Bring him up from his rehab stint as Diaz hits it into right. Bruce can't get there. It's another hit for Ledmus. On base 3 times. Reached on an error. Singled on an 0-2 pitch to left, and now on the first pitch singles to right, his 3rd time up.
Everything he is doing says you're not taking me out.
How can you?
Gets jammed on that one, but still finds a open spot.
Pinch hit home run in the ball game last night for Matt Adams. The Cardinals pinch hitters 9 for 16, 9 RBIs, 6 home runs.
We talked earlier about the importance of having left-handed pop off the bench against the right-handed bullpen of Cincinnati.
Hit down the left field line, slicing foul. After the Cardinals and their 9 pinch hits, Arizona has 5, Seattle with 5. It's not even close in terms of the power production off the bench for St. Louis. Adams trying to figure out his swing, as he told us on the post-game show and with Jim's interview in the pregame today. Closer, closer, closer is what he's saying. Hits it the other way for a base hit. Diaz will stop at second base. Second time in this homestand that Matt Adams has gone the other way.
Brandon Moss did it earlier in this game. I love seeing players beat the shift. That's how you stop the shift, frankly. Do more and more of this, the numbers change. And they'll say, you know what, Matt Adams likes to hit the ball the other way. Maybe we should play him over there. 10 for 17 now, our Cardinal pinch hitter.
The Reds bullpen, first 6 games they were at home, the ERA was 2.42. Last 4 ERA is close to 10. Runners at first and second. You get the feeling this game is long from over.
You don't need to get 4 runs back here, but a couple of runs will tighten things up for sure.
Reds relievers, 8 home runs allowed, most in the National League. Carpenter's been on base twice. A 2-out RBI back in the second. He also walked in inning number 4. And a ground ball hit to second, bobbled by Phillips. What could have been 2 extends the inning to Piscotty, who was already homered here this afternoon.
Could have been better, could have been worse. Cardinals have an opportunity to capitalize on him booting this ball, but how about the calmness by which he just picks it up and at least gets 1, realizes at that point it's not a double play, so let's not make it worse by throwing the ball away.
Three-run homer for Piscotty back in inning number 2. Key play in this game, a diving stop by Suarez on a liner off of Piscotty's bat back in the 4th. That saved 2 runs. At that point, you go up 6-0, and maybe this game is over. Or rather 6-2 at that point. Piscotty, base hit into left, off the glove of Suarez.
Another hard hit ball by the Cardinals, this time Piscotty. Suarez not able to come up with it. And the Cardinals do indeed make that failed double play on the ball hit to Brandon Phillips hurt.
All 5 runs for the Cardinals have come with 2 outs. Holiday with 2 home runs last night, 0 for 3 today. Struck out, grounded out, flied out. He represents the tying run. First pitch to him. Strike 1.
Not sure if the worm has turned back again, Dan, but he's thinking about it.
He's teetering. The 0-1. Little chopper backing up Phillips calmly to second. He is so calm with the baseball. Man, oh man. Cardinals pick up a run. It cuts a lead to 8-5. Playoffs in Fox Sports Midwest has you covered. Tomorrow afternoon we'll have the Cardinals here on Fox Sports Midwest. Blues Hawks will be on NBC, but after our Cardinals coverage, we'll have Blues Live postgame with John Bernie Panger after game number 3. Hear from the guys who know the Blues the best. That's tomorrow after Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest. After watching the game last night, Rick, I think you have a future, along with 40,000 plus, to be an NHL referee. Chevy call to the pen. Seung-Hwan Oh. Well, we had a nice conversation with him today, didn't we not?
We sure did. Very, very cordial and very giving of his time. Eugene Koo is his translator, and we really had the conversation through Eugene. But he is very happy to be a Cardinal, and he's off to a really good start.
About 9 strikeouts. I asked him the difference between pitching in Japan or Korea and what he sees here in the United States. He said there's no doubt there is more power here, but he also said that the hitters swing for the fences, if you will. They swing for power, where over in Japan it's more about contact and putting the ball in play. .30 pitch to Mesoraco.
Even said as a follow-up to that, he said, but obviously there are different ballparks here in the United States, just as there are different ballparks dimensions in both Japan and Korea. So you really have to understand that, but ultimately go back to what you do well.
That's a leadoff walk. Asked him about opening day. I said, what really stood out for you? He said it was an honor to see legendary figures, and he said no other Asian players get the chance to do that. And he said the one that really stood out for him, the great Ozzie Smith. And I said, why is that? And he said because Koreans know him,
yes,
more than anybody. They know the Wizard of Oz.
He was aware of all the other Cardinal Hall of Famers, but Ozzie definitely stood out to him.
We also asked him about how he approaches these hitters. He doesn't know them all that well. Seems to throw a lot of pitches to the right-handers, middle outer half, that slider, and he said he just follows Yadi.
Right.
So whatever Yadi puts down, that's what I'm going with. We said, how impressed have you been with Yadier Molina? He said, if you know baseball, you know how great he is, and that's all you need to know. So I went to Yadi and I said, is this true? Are you calling all his pitches? And he kind of shook his head a little bit, and he said, I don't like to get all that credit, but I just put down that he was saying, yes, I do, without saying it.
Well, it's a trust factor.
Yeah.
The catcher makes a suggestion and the pitcher agrees with you.
Off the end of the bat and a fly ball into center. Grichuk, one away. Didn't you get the fact, though, that he is very grateful, respectful of being able to be a part of the Cardinals in particular?
Yeah, we were talking a lot about the fans. We asked him about the warm reception that he's had here, and not really being able to understand the words, but the feelings there. I mean, you could just tell that this is a place that has a lot of energy, I believe was the word he used, and clearly happy to be a Cardinal, but didn't understand any of the words that he said, although when he says Yadi, you know who he's talking about. He does like to come back to Yadi's ability to help him, which I think is pretty special.
Yeah, to follow up on your comment about the fans, he said language is not a barrier between fans because of the love of the game and the passion that the players have and this city has in particular with this ball club and the history of the franchise. He specifically wanted to come to St. Louis. This is where he wanted to be. Talked about seeing the Cardinals all the time on TV. Here's a 1-0 pitch to Scott Schebler. Billy Hamilton has moved to the on-deck circle. We also asked him about the food. It's been his best food. He said, our chef, Simon, here at the ballpark, he said he makes great food. Throw to second. Oh my goodness. Wow. May have missed a sign. I don't know. Wouldn't think that Mesoraco would be stealing on his own, but regardless, he shows off the arm.
Couldn't tell whether Mesoraco was peeking in or not, and he was peeking in, so it's a hit and run. If you just go straight to the bag, it's often a straight steal, but when you look in right away, it's often a hit and run. You're trying to figure out what happens with the bat. How about the fans here?
Chance of Yachty here at the ballpark, and a 2-1 pitch. 2-2. See a lot of late swings against O, and the players talked about it after his first bullpen session in spring training.
Hides the ball.
Yeah, he really hides the ball. Fastball, they got him. 94 on the gun. The worm is starting to turn even just a little bit more.
Keep turning, baby.
Cardinals hit a home run. The Gateway Honda dealers donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Had a couple of winners this year already. Guy can't make a decision. New pitcher in for the Cincinnati Reds. Caleb Cotham in relief of Wood. Brandon Finnegan, their starter, went 5 innings today. He gave up 4 runs on 4 hits, struck out 2, walked 4, gave up a home run, 3-run shot to Stephen Piscotty. Wood then came in, gave up 3 base hits and a run. Back in the bottom of the 6th. Cotham was part of the Aroldis Chapman deal. Fastball that's 94 to 96. Also mixes in a slider. Richick, Molina, Moss. Here's a 1-0 pitch. Richick has grounded out to short, also popped out to short, walked back in the first. Now has 7 walks this year. Taken high. Here's a 3-0. Well, Rick, we have some proof talking about first pitch swinging against Adam Wainwright. Reds went 6 for 8, 4 doubles the first pitch in this game today. Leadoff walk. By the way, this season now 12 for 17 first pitch. So that's been the idea, clearly. Try to get after him early. Leadoff walk to Randal Grichuk. The Cardinals have received 5 walks today.
So it's a game of adjustments. Adam will adjust to that. Learn from it. Move on. These walks are going to kill these Reds relievers if they don't figure out a way to throw more strikes. I mean, they've just way too many walks.
Billy Hamilton is taken over in center field. Schebler shifts from center to left. And Cotham, your new pitcher. Cingrani is a lefty. Ross Ohlendorf, the right-hander. Here's a 1-0. Molina today is flied out to left, grounded to third, and also walked back in the 5th. Eight to 5 Cincinnati. Yachty with a high fly ball lifted into center. Billy Hamilton is there, makes the catch. Throws a strike back into the infield. Grichuk thought about tagging up. He was back in the bag, took off towards second, and then thought otherwise. Shift on here for Brandon Moss. Singled against that shift to left field, scored a run back in the 2nd. Throw behind Grichuk. Oh, nice play to be backing that ball up.
We talked earlier about always a place to go. That's Suarez backing up.
Right.
The throw.
Because of the shift, the third baseman is over on that side of the diamond, and Phillips near the bag at second. Cozart at short. Here's a 1-0.
I think we have to question whether or not the Cardinals have the firepower to get back in this ballgame. We've seen enough of the long ball to be convinced of that. Not really a closer for Cincinnati. They don't have a save yet as a team. They're really trying to figure out how their bullpen's going to shake out. Maybe some auditioning going on in the first month.
After the strikeout of Moss, there's Jed Jerko 0 for 3 today. Another check on Grichuk, and that gets away. Grichuk will stop at second base.
Defense led to a Cardinal run in the 6th inning on a double play that wasn't turned. Maybe this errant throw will lead to a Cardinal run in the next. Grichuk has good speed. Not much benefit going to third from second. Scoring a base hit by Jerko either way.
Second error charge to Cincinnati in this game. You commit 2 errors, you walk 5. Normally, you're not on the winning end.
Very true.
First pitch to Jerko. Base hit into right. Here comes that throwing arm of Jay Bruce. Fires to the plate. Not in time. Jerko to second, and he's safe. Error leads to a run.
Error leads to a run, and then another mistake by Jay Bruce of not hitting the cutoff man might lead to another run. You said he was showing off his arm. He indeed did that. There's the jump by Grichuk inside of the bag. He's headed home. Maloney's sending him, but the high throw over the head of the cutoff man Votto means Jerko can take second base.
Here's Diaz. He represents the tying run. On base 3 times. Single to left on an 0-2 pitch back in the 4th. Single to right. Scored a run in the 6th. Hit a line drive off the glove of the center fielder Schebler at the time. Back in the 2nd. 1 ball, 1 strike. Jeremy Hazelbaker. Diaz to short. Cozart. High throw, but Votto on the bag. Cardinals strand a runner. They pick up a run on a base hit by Jerko. It's now 8-6. The 8th here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. There's Billy Hamilton. First time we've seen him at the plate. And the first time we've seen Seung-Hwan Oh pitch multiple innings. The 1-0 pitch. Oh, Fields throws, got him.
That wasn't a bad bunt by Billy Hamilton. Oh, was quick to the ball. Just barely got him.
Oh, walked the first man he saw back in the 7th. Mesoraco, he was a race caught stealing. Duvall flied out. Schebler struck out. Hamilton the first out here in the 8th. Top of the lineup at Zach Cozart.
To learn how to say bunt in Korean. You don't know, do you? Top of your head?
To learn how to say a lot of things in Korean.
Like anything.
Yeah.
I was thinking about when he was out there, you know, when you have players from Venezuela and Dominican and they're just coming over to the States, you learn the baseball words. And then when you teach them the baseball words, you typically learn that word in Spanish too. So most players on this field know basic Spanish baseball words. I would say everybody knows that bunt is toque. Everybody knows that.
Eugene, when he was speaking to would try to mix in a little English.
He would.
Just some of the simple words. Cardinals, Busch Stadium.
I heard crazy announcer.
Erratic lefties. Here's a 2-2. Hit in the gap in left center field. That ball will get down all the way to the wall. And it's a double for Zach Cozart. 3rd hit today. He's off to a great start for the Reds.
First ball we've seen hit hard off of O that I can recall.
Yeah.
Ball down in the zone. Good swing. Cozart's a streaky hitter. His injury a year ago really came at a bad time for him. He'd been playing well, hitting well, and it happens.
Suarez. This is the 18th plate appearance with a runner in scoring position for the Reds today. 18. Most of that done in innings 4, 5, and 6. Here's a 1-0. You could see where O would be really tough against right-handed batters. Just watch that previous pitch. It starts out middle, ends on the outer half, caught outside.
He has a slider and a cutter. I mean, one's just a little quicker than the other. One's got more of a downward break. And he's got 93 up in the eyes, and it's a good, I would say, follow-up pitch, because you don't really know till the last minute on a cutter whether it's a straight fastball or it's going to break away from you. Then you throw that riding fastball. Frankly, movement is an issue, I think, with Wainwright right now. His velocity's kind of normal, but just not a lot of hop to it. We're seeing some hop here on the pitches from Sung Hwan Oh.
I thought his fastball is the best we've seen it today. The off-speed stuff has been good since day one. A little shaky start. Remember, he walked a couple in that opener, but came away unscathed. Admitted he was nervous. Here's a 1-2. Spoiled again by Eugenio Suarez. Doubled down the left field line with 2 outs, picked up an RBI back in the 6th. That inning, Reds scored 4. Two balls, 2 strikes. Runner at second base, Zach Cozart.
Right-hander facing right-hander.
And the 2-2 from O.
Crowd wants this pitch, but just off the plate.
Rick, the Reds have hit 8 doubles here today. Here's a 3-2. Struck him out. The second for O. Plaza Tire Fox Tracks. The fastball from O.
Tremendous life to this fastball. Here it is, hit it. Up in the zone, couldn't catch up to it.
So Eugene, the interpreter, is out with Mike Matheny. And remember, when Eugene came out in a similar spot like this with Andrew McCutchen at the plate, first base open, he came out as Molina called him out. That is an official visit if he went out by himself. And Eugene also very appreciative to everybody that has made him feel comfortable.
It seems to me that if you have an interpreter in a situation, 30 seconds isn't enough.
I think the umpire feels the same way. 30 seconds is up right now.
It has been for about 5. Perhaps they're giving him leeway.
The umpires can break up any meetings after 30 seconds. If you violate that rule, you can expect a warning letter, and then after the letter, you'll get fined. There's Eugene, who's trotting off along with the home plate umpire. He was born in Cincinnati, moved at the age of 7 to Seoul, Korea, went to an international high school, then came back to the States, NYU, for sports management. Didn't have to do this, but he served a 2-year military service, finished school. 29 years old, he knew O's agent, and that's how those two got hooked up, and here he is in the big leagues. Two outs, runner at second base. O hits his spot but doesn't get the call. Be very careful here with Joey Votto. The 1-0.
There's certain situations folks may say, well, can't they talk about this beforehand, how you'd pitch? But you can't cover every circumstance in a game of baseball. And, you know, the score is going to dictate how you're pitching to Votto, how many outs, how he's swinging the bat that day. So there's going to be nuance differences that you want to make sure you communicate. You can prepare some, Dan, by saying, okay, when we go out to the mound, here's what we'll do and here's what we'll talk about. But every game's different. It's part of what we love about this game, and that's why Eugene Koo right there in the middle becomes important in that communication when O is pitching.
Runner at second, Cozart, 2 outs, 1 ball, 2 strikes. The next by O. Fought off by Votto.
And it gets more complicated because even as the count changes, O has to know that Votto is behind in the count 1 and 2, but he is an incredible 2-strike hitter. So that piece of information should be in his head instead of, okay, now I can just attack the zone. Well, no, not against Votto. You still have to be careful with it.
Crowd comes alive on this 1-2 pitch to Votto. We'll have to ask him how many times he went for more than just an inning save. And here he is in this role. You need multiple innings from O. He's not just a closer.
He's known as the final boss, but at least this afternoon he's trying to be the 7th and 8th inning boss.
What do you think? Middle relief boss? Setup boss?
Setup boss. If he continues to be successful, he can call himself whatever he wants.
Two and two the count on Joey Votto. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Votto. And now time is called. You can see Bo look into the dugout as if he needed the translator.
Can't come out again.
You think O had any idea what Yachty was just saying?
It's a good question.
The 2-2 pitch. Fly ball. Stays in the ballpark. Piscotty calling for it. 2 scoreless innings by Sung Hwan Oh. This bud's for you. And brought to you by National Car Rental. Go National, go like a pro. Great to have National, St. Louis-based company, sponsoring Cardinals baseball again this season. Our crowd today, 44,425, 44425. Jeremy Hazelbaker will be the hitter for St. Louis. And with the introduction of the left-handed hitting Hazelbaker, Cingrani coming on when we come back in our Chevy call to the pen. Iced Coffee found a frozen drink tomorrow for just 50 cents at your local On the Run. And use the On the Run app to find your nearest store. You earned it. Tony Cingrani. It is fastball after fastball from him. Lefty-lefty matchup here. Cingrani against Hazelbaker. Jeremy is 7 for 17 with a home run on the homestand. Hit his 3rd home run on Thursday night. And then last night snapped his 8-game hitting streak. Here's a 1-0. All right, now he's got to look at the off-speed pitch, the slider.
You won't see very many of those from Cingrani, as you mentioned. He's definitely a fastball pitcher. More of a get-me-over slider there. He's been one of those guys they haven't been sure whether he should be a starter or a reliever. He's sneaky. He'll work up in the zone. He's a short armor, a unique delivery. He can get some strikeouts. First full season, 120 strikeouts in 104 innings.
1-2 the count. Hazelbaker hitting .600 against left-handed pitching so far this year. Big happy 40th birthday to Liz Hawkins. Watching the ball game today and celebrating her 40th birthday. Happy birthday, Liz. Here's a 1-2 pitch. Called 3rd strike. I've seen that called a lot today, that high strike.
Just catches the outer half and the top of the zone. Good location. Tough to hit that pitch.
Cardinals with a pair of right-handers getting loose in the pen. Cingrani, the 4th pitcher used by the Reds today. Finnegan 5 innings. Wood pitched the 6th. Cotham the 7th. And now Tony Cingrani. Carpenter, 2-out base hit, RBI, run scored back in the 2nd, walked in the 4th. Popped up down the left field line, slicing near the seats. Out of play.
Dan, it's interesting. We've heard a lot of explanations over the years about why left-handers are low ball hitters. I'm not sure I've ever heard an explanation that ever really makes any sense to me, really. But it's a fact. Lefties like it down and in. Up and away is not a pitch they like to see. Right-handers, on the other hand, up and away is a terrible place to throw most right-handed batters. They just love to drop the head on that, drive the ball, and lefties, for some reason, have a different way of looking at that pitch that's down or up in the zone.
Fouled back and into the upper deck here at Busch Stadium.
Thought of Jim Edmonds as a really good high ball hitter as a left-hander, which was not typical.
Think of game 6 in LCS 2004 and that walk-off homer. Here's the 0-2. Cingrani, to me, looks like he telegraphs that slider.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Didn't even have to see the action on the pitch. You could see it live. Slows down his delivery just a little bit. We can see it. The hitter can see it.
0-2 the count. Wants it up and away. Gets it there for ball 1. On the air tomorrow at 12:30. Michael Wacha trying to go to 2-0.
Speaking of Jim Edmonds, it's great to have him as a part of our team on Fox Sports Midwest. And for fans that maybe didn't see the games he did in spring training. It's just nice to have his perspective, his understanding of outfield play, his understanding of what goes through the mind of a hitter, and just excited to have Jimmy on the team.
We'll see him in San Diego. Next road trip goes through San Diego and Arizona. The 1-2. Pulled foul. After that, the Cardinals finish up April. A couple of games against Washington. Bleeds over into May. Then we'll see the Phillies and Pittsburgh. Nice long homestand. Here's a 1-2. 2-2. Reds will still have to go through the heart of this lineup before this game is over.
Cardinals need to just keep chipping away.
The 2-2. Carpenter, line drive, right field and right at Bruce. With 2 outs, nobody on, it's Stephen Piscotty. Picked up a 3-run homer back in the 2nd inning. Cardinals at that point had a 4-run lead. Cincinnati then put up 8. Cardinals have come back with 2 and they trail by 2. Piscotty with 4 driven in today. One ball, 1 strike. Watch Piscotty. He's just very calm at the plate.
Yes.
Quiet.
Not a lot of wasted movement.
Jammed him. Popped up. Votto, foul territory. And the Cardinals go in order. Good work by Tony Cingrani. We head to the 9th. Reds on top. There's Brad Thompson and Scott Warman.
Can't get much nicer than those 2 guys, can you?
Yeah, I can think of a few.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's you, Brad. We have him down at fantasy camp. He is hysterical.
Extremely funny. Don't underestimate him.
No, sir. Jonathan Broxton off to a very good start. 3 1/3 innings out of the pen. No ERA. Phillips on the first pitch, fouled it back. Talking with Jonathan today in the clubhouse. We've been noticing a ball that it's a changeup, if you will, really sinks, and he calls it a one-seam fork ball, if you will, almost like a splitter, back in his hand, and it's been a very effective pitch at times for Broxton.
We definitely noticed it was a pitch different than the slider. It goes straight down and just kind of dies, and it does have changeup action to it. And you know, a lot of times guys will experiment with different changeup grips, and it appears that he's found one. Really, just some would call it a split change. Some would call it just a claw grip where you're putting it deep in your hand.
Fly ball, center field. Grichuk, one down.
Whatever it is, it's been successful.
And he mixes in the slider and the very good fastball. Still a mid-90s fastball. Said it all depends on how you feel when you come out of the pen. If you're throwing 98 to 100, which he used to do consistently. Here's Jay Bruce. You know a thing or two about that, where you just have days you don't feel right, right?
I thought you were going to say I don't know about the 98 to 100.
No, no, no.
And I do in my dreams, but not in reality. But yeah, it's a game of, you know, and that's true of all sports, is you've got to figure out how I can be 100% today with what I have today. So you throw some tendencies out of the window, and some, I mean, there may be a guy you're facing, a perfect example of this. You'd say, well, why did you throw him a curveball? He hasn't hit your curveball. Well, my curveball wasn't very good that day. That's why. So you have to understand what strengths you have on a given day, adjust to that. I mean, we do say it a lot, it's a game of adjustments, but there's so many. I mean, there's hundreds of adjustments that happen throughout a baseball game. Some obvious, some subtle. There's that changeup, 88 miles an hour. When we first started seeing that pitch, we thought maybe he was just getting underneath or misthrowing a slider and it was backing up, but it's a changeup with a purpose.
The 2-2 pitch to Jay Bruce. How about the job of O so far? 6 2/3, 11 strikeouts, 1 hit. That's it. No runs. And today, 2 scoreless innings out of the pen. The 2-2.
Said the Reds are going to have to go through the middle of the Cardinals order.
That's well hit into right field. That ball is gone. It's a home run. Jay Bruce, 3rd of the season, 2nd RBI today.
Got to give the Reds credit today. They have come to play after an embarrassing loss here in game 1. They have, well, they've got mad. They're taking it out on the baseball. 9 runs in this game.
And that is a foul ball. Devin Mesoraco.
A ton of extra base hits.
Mesoraco today. Double and a run scored back in the 6th. Lines it, and it's caught. Jerko leaping to make that grab. How frustrating would that be if you're the hitter and the shift and you just hit a rocket
up the middle?
Oh.
And there's a player there who, by the way, makes a nice play on top of it. Times the leap perfectly. Jerko's looked good defensively here today. Number of good plays.
So 2 outs, nobody on, and here is Tyler Holt. Holt is pinch hitting for Duvall. The 0-1. J.J. Hoover set to pitch in the bottom of the 9th. Right now he is the closer of Cincinnati. They have a 3-run lead. It's 9-6. Looking ahead, the Cardinals, who have Holiday, Grichuk, and Molina. Here's the 0-2. It's sharply into center field for a base hit. Look at that. Holt hustling into second base. Friday, April 29th, 30,000 fans ages 16 and older receive an adult zip-up hooded sweatshirt. Stay warm as you cheer on the Cardinals all season long. All you have to do is visit cardinals.com/promotions. That's April 29th. How about that double?
About that speed.
Nine doubles hit by Cincinnati. Here's Shebler. The shift is on for the left-handed hitting Shebler. Hits it to the left side. Glove by Carpenter and just got him. Down by 3. It's Holiday, Grichuk, Molina coming up. reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. It's a 9-6 lead for Cincinnati as J.J. Hoover takes over. He has struggled here at Busch Stadium in his career. Had a couple of save opportunities, could not convert in his career against the Cardinals. He is 3-3. Those are the numbers against Hoover. Due up for St. Louis, Holiday, Grichuk, and Molina. It's our Chevy called to the pen.
Yeah, and he's their closer right now, but he only has 5 career major league saves. He came to the big leagues in 2012. He's been more of a 7th inning guy or an 8th inning guy. So who knows?
Fly ball lifted out to deep right field. That ball is off the base of the wall. Holiday hustling into second base and sliding in safely with a leadoff double.
It's not over yet. Short hops the wall. Bruce with the good arm made it interesting at second base, but Matt Holliday a good at bat.
Happy birthday, 9th birthday to Colleen Dryden. Watching today on Fox Sports Midwest. Happy birthday to Colleen Dryden. Here's Randall Grichuk. We'll see how big that home run for Jay Bruce plays out in this game. Grichuk with 2 walks today. He's up to 8 this year. No balls and 2 strikes. And the 1-2 pitch to Randall Grichuk. Got him with the slider. 1 out here in the 9th. Molina is 0 for 3 with a walk today. Strike 1. No balls, 1 strike with 1 out, runner at second base. Ground ball hit to the right side. Phillips. 2 outs. Holiday advancing to third. We turn to our Budweiser player of the game. We turn to the shortstop, Zach Cozart, 3 for 4, couple of doubles, 2 RBIs, and a run scored.
Sacrifice fly in the middle of that. That sacrifice fly was an important run at the time that came in the 6th inning. It was a good at bat. They extended the lead, and the Reds just haven't looked back. The Cardinals chipped away a little, but need another base runner.
Strike one on Brandon Moss. He'd love to have that pitch back. That was a hanging breaking ball.
Another situation where it might make more sense to play somebody more straight up. Home run is not what the Cardinals need right now. They need a base runner. So maybe you don't overshift in that situation. Don't give him a hole to hit the ball through.
One ball, one strike on Moss. Popped up. Will it get out of play? 2 strikes.
I think Moss was trying to shoot that ball through the left side.
Sure was. Johnny Peralta and Brian Pena there. 2 strikes on Brandon Moss. The 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Moss pulls it foul. Trying to extend the ball game to get to Jerko. Take a look at how they're giving the signals.
Going with pumps instead of numbers.
Cardinals 1 pitch away from putting the tying run at the plate.
Sometimes you use pumps if the pitcher can't see. You don't want to get mixed up. You can't see the difference between 1 and 2. Maybe their eyesight's not as good. It happens.
Moss with a fly ball. Out to deep left. It's at the track. At the wall. And this is gone. Moss. 2-run homer. The tying run will come to the plate. And Brandon has knocked out his 4th this year.
And what did you say about the Jay Bruce home run in the top of the inning?
Looms large.
So he wanted to pump that fastball in the inner half, and it went away. And Moss took it way out.
Now Jed Jerko. He represents the tying run. It's now 9-8. The 0-1 of Ledmus Diaz. He's on deck. You never know. We may see Greg Garcia. Getting a quick report from Brandon Moss. The 1-1 pitch. Brian Price is thinking, just get me one more out. Somebody out of this pen. Get me one more.
Fans are asking for something else.
Jerko is trying to tie it. Ooh.
It's a good swing.
So again, the Cardinals down to their final strike. The 2-2. The fans that have stuck around, they're into it now. The next to Jerko. He's matched his total from a year ago in St. Louis. He had a 19 home run total split between Cleveland and St. Louis. 3-2 pitch. Tying run is aboard. Winning run comes to the plate. Isn't this something? They will pinch run with Colton Wong at first base. Nobody getting loose in the pen right now for Cincinnati.
We've seen already in the early going that the Cardinals are battlers in late innings. We actually saw it in spring training. Yes, it's spring training. That doesn't count in some ways, but I think the character of the team has been to score late. Cardinals certainly have done it in this game, but they've got more to do.
Diaz on base 3 times today. 2 singles, reached on an error. Wong, your runner at first. Diaz, first pitch, pops it up. And the catch is made, and this game comes to a close. Well, the Cardinals make it interesting late with the Moss home run and a final of 9-8 in Game 2 of this weekend series in favor of Cincinnati.
Well, the Cardinals made it interesting, Dan, in the 9th inning, and you got to give him credit for that. Moss's home run puts the winning run at the plate in Diaz, but Redbirds come up short. Tough outing for Adam Wainwright. It's been so long ago since we saw Adam in this game, but not his best. So tough loss here in Game 2.
It's on to the post-game show. All the highlights, news around Major League Baseball. Brad Thompson, Scott Warman standing by. 9-8 our final. Stay tuned to the post-game.